Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhavya Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari 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 Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Rajajana Ranjana 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 Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Hare Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Hare Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Hare Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Hare Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Hare Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Hare Ramo 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 Hare Hare Radha Madhava ki jai, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, ich kann Kishore-kun fast nicht sehen, aber ich denke, sie da ist da. Kann jemand für Kishore-kun übersetzen? Super, Gopal, vielen Dank. Okay. Ich habe hier vielleicht auf der richtigen Stelle. Danke. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nasta prayesa padreshu nityam bhagavata sevya bhagavati uttam shloke bhakti bhagavati nashtiki. So thank you very much for attending today's class. We are reading from the 4th canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, called The Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 9, entitled Dhruva, Maharaj Returns Home, and text 10. Okay, so we go through word by word because now these longer lines with the Brahma Samhita meter, thank you very much. It can become a bit entangled. I tried it earlier, so let's do word by word to begin with, okay? Ya, that which. Nivritti, bliss, Tanu Britam, of the embodied. Tava, your. Pada Padma, lotus feet. Dhyanat, from meditating upon. Bhavajana, from your intimate devotees. Kata, topics. Shravanena, by hearing. Va, or. Shyat, comes into being. Sa, that bliss. Brahmani, in the impersonal Brahman. Swamahimani, your own magnificence. Your own magnificence. Yeah, sorry, my German and English mixes together sometimes. Api, even. Nata, O Lord. Ma, never. Bhut, exists. Kim, what to speak of. Tu, then. Ataka Ashi, by the sword of death. Lulitat, being destroyed. Patatam, of those who fall down. Vimanat, from their airplanes. Nice. Okay, so let's do line by line. Ya nivritis tanu pritam. Ya nivritis tanu pritam tava pada padma. Brian, help me out again. Ya nivritis tanu pritam tava pada padma. Yeah. Ya nivritis tanu pritam tava pada padma. Ya nivritis tanu pritam tava pada padma. Dhyanat bhavajana kata shravanena vyasyat. Dhyanat bhavajana kata shravanena vashyat. Dhyanat bhavajana kata shravanena vashyat. Adpavachana kata shravanai vanashrat Sapramani samahimani api natamabhut Sapramani samahimani api natamabhut Sapramani samahimani api natamabhut Kim tva ataka shilulitat patatam vimanat Kim tva antaka shilulitat vimanat Kim tva antaka shilulitat patatam vimanat Kim tva antaka shilulitat patanam vimanat. Very good. Prabhus, please. Jnanat bhavechana kata shravanena vashyat Kim tva antaka shilulitat patatam vimanat Yevitasthanupritam tava padma padma Jnanat bhavachana kata shravavana vashyat Kim tva ataka shiluliatat patat vimanat. I'm skeptic of myself, not of you. Any more Prabhus? Nivritisthanu tava pada padma Jnanat bhavachana kata shravanena vyashyat Svabrahmani samahimani api natamabhut Kim tva antak shilulitat patatam vimanat. Matajis? Bolo, bolo. Brahma Samhita. Rosemary, give it a go. Come on. You're our lawyer. Come on. Anwalt. Yani vritistanu pritam tava pada padma. Jnanat bhavachana kata shravanena vyashyat Sapramani samahimani api natamabhut Kim tva antaka shilulitat padatam vimanat. Nice. Okay. So, translation by Srila Prabhupada. My Lord, the transcendental bliss derived from meditating upon your lotus feet or hearing about your glories from pure devotees is so unlimited that it is far beyond the stage of Brahmanda, wherein one thinks himself merged in the impersonal Brahman as one with the Supreme. Since Brahmananda is also defeated by the transcendental bliss derived from devotional service, then what to speak of the temporary blissful blissfulness of elevating oneself to the heavenly planets, which is ended by the separating sword of time. Although one may be elevated to the heavenly planets, he falls down in due course of time. I go to the translation, the purport. The transcendental bliss derived from devotional service, primarily from Shravanam Kirtanan, hearing and chanting, cannot be compared to the happiness derived by karmis by elevating themselves to the heavenly planets, or the jnanis or yogis who enjoy oneself with the supreme impersonal Brahman. Yogis generally meditate upon the transcendental form of Vishnu, but devotees not only meditate upon him, but actually engage in a direct service of the Lord. In the previous verse, we find the phrase bhava bhyaya, which refers to birth and death. The Lord can give relief from the chain of birth and death. It is a misunderstanding to think, as do the monists, that when one gets relief from the process of birth and death, that he merges into the supreme Brahman. Here it is clearly said that the transcendental bliss derived from Shravanam Kirtanam by pure devotees cannot be compared to Brahmananda, or the impersonal conception of transcendental bliss derived by merging into the Absolute. The position of karmis is still more degraded. Their aim is to elevate themselves to the higher planetary systems. It is said, Yanti Deva Vrata Devan. Persons who worship the demigods are elevated to the heavenly planets, Bhagavad Gita 9.25. But elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita 9.21, we find Shine Punya Matya Lokam Vishanti. Those who are elevated to the higher planetary systems must come down again as soon as the results of their pious activities are exhausted. They are like the modern astronauts who go to the moon. As soon as it's an interesting example here. As soon as their fuel is used up, they are obliged to come back down to this earth. As the modern astronauts who go to the moon or other heavenly planets by force of jet propulsion have to come down again after exhausting their fuel, so also to those who are elevated to the heavenly planets by force of yajnas and pious activities. Antakashi lulitat, by the sword of time one is cut from his exalted position within this material world and he comes down again. Dhruva Maharaj appreciated that the results of devotional service are far more valuable than merging into the Absolute or being elevated to the heavenly planets. The words Patadam Vimanat are very significant. Vimana means airplane. Those who are elevated to the heavenly planets are like airplanes which drop when they run out of fuel. So just in context again, as a reminder, Dhruva Maharaj is now addressing the Lord in glorification. So in one sense, he is speaking from his direct experience because he's just spent quite some time meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord. So the translation once more of this verse. My Lord, the transcendental bliss derived from meditating upon your lotus feet or hearing about your glories from your devotees is so unlimited that is far beyond the stage of Brahmananda, wherein one thinks himself merged in the impersonal Brahman as one with the Supreme. Since Brahmananda is also defeated by the transcendental bliss derived from devotional service, then what to speak of the temporary blissfulness of elevating oneself to the heavenly planets, which is ended by the separating sword of time? Although one may be elevated to the heavenly planets, he falls down in due course of time. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shri Sati Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, dear devotees, this is a wonderful verse I ask for your blessings today that I can speak something of use, because I seem to have the illness that our Balaram Pran and Lalita came down with. Haribol, yes. So it was very interesting to see if through transcendental knowledge we can overcome our material bodies in this way. In this moment where Dhruva Maharaj is addressing the Lord, he speaks particularly on this term transcendental bliss. And Srila Prabhupada speaks about this in terms of Shravanam Kirtanam. In the text itself, we will see the words Dhyanat and Padapadma, meaning meditating upon the lotus feet, as well as Shravanam, I think is also the Shravana, by hearing. Usually as devotees, it comes without too much saying that we follow this process of Shravanam Kirtanam. And also in this purport, we read a lot about this idea of either merging in with Brahmananda, or about reaching the heavenly planets. I have to say, within the devotee circles, I haven't heard so many devotees talk about, Radha Krishna, let me go to the heavenly planets. But this is very common amongst the Indians. So, for example, there will be Durga or Ambaji worship, like my family. And my father, for example, had quite some spiritual experience, he said. So this was his main aim. Sometimes I've heard preachers discuss Hindu philosophy a little bit like khichdi, meaning everything is a little mixed together. Normally, generally to say Indians can be quite relaxed with the whole thing, but if you push a little bit on the button, they say, because we have quite some preachers in the room, then you will see, Ganesh, Ambaji, Durga, Radha Krishna, all the same, Very nice, all the same. So it is sometimes, mixed in, everyone's thrown together. This is why it's called a khichdi, Just throw it all in together, it'll all come out to the same result. And this is where our view as devotees tries to home in the actual process, because over time and over years the process can be put into a different direction. Certainly for those who worship demigods, they may find that the results are much more immediate, and not as tough as maybe the process of bhakti yoga. I remember some weeks before my father left his body, so to say, I was studying Bhakti Shastri. So we're talking, I was part of the first Bhakti Shastri group at the Bhaktivedanta Manor around, about 15, 16, 17 years ago, like this. So I was quite enthusiastic, and my dad picked me up from the train station, and I started to preach to him. He's like, "Oh, you are studying Bhagavad Gita. Oh, finally something good here with the Hare Krishnas." He was a little skeptical. The Hare Krishna said, "Yes, Dad, you should worship Radha and Krishna." He's like, "Yes." And I'm like, "No, Dad, not just Durga. There is it tells you clearly that you should worship." And I was speaking, like quite probably immaturely on the state. But somehow, a father has a lot of love for their children, especially daughters. So he was like, "Okay, tell me something more. Tell me more about this line." And I said, "Look, Dad, it's not proper. You don't need to go to the heavenly planets. You'll only come back down again. You'll only come back down. It's clearly stated. It's not really the right path. You have to aim for something more, He's like, yeah, Radha Krishna, yes, Krishna, but, I said, no, just Radha Krishna, please, for my sake, could you try to pray to them? It was a very interesting conversation, because, of course, I didn't know that he would pass away so soon after. And the weeks that I met him after, I continued to preach from my Bhakti Shastri Bhagavad Gita class. And he was a very sort of humble man, so he took the preaching of his daughter and even made me read to my mama what one should do when one passes. So one understands that maybe someone has a divine way of passing. Yeah. So just in this line, on terms of it may be that one comes across more Indian general. We have many in Munich and also I think in Linz and other places where the preaching has to be a little bit more specific into what we are going, because often you're just given a nod, and mostly I have Bhagavad Gita, or yeah. The next question is, have you read it? And they show you like an immaculate version of the Bhagavad Gita. I've had it for 20 years. Yes, Ramananda, Leah, open it and read it sometimes, please. So sometimes it's this. Prabhupada, there is a famous saying that Prabhupada said, for Indians, one just has to scratch the surface and Krishna consciousness is there. I think it's in reference to the fact that a lot of the Vaishnava culture that we have is often an intrinsic part of the culture. Sanskrit, what we learn, still in Hindi, all of the letters are those from the Sanskrit alphabet. So there are some words which are connected in that way. For others of those, some of us who experimented with different religions, we may have gone for more the sort of Buddhist approach. Did anyone delve into Buddhism here? Just me, I was in Singapore. The national religion there is Buddhism. I could imagine Supal Kopala. We're aiming for ahimsa and peace, huh? Was it like this? Maybe, huh? So we were aiming for peace and non-violence, and in this way one tries to go higher. And there are very many beautiful things to learn in the idea of a culture of a devotee. You know, this idea of non-violence, not in terms of actions, but also in thoughts. Well-meaning, as Prabhupada was a well-wisher, all of these lines. But ultimately, this view of just reaching Brahman is limited because it's this state of oneness, right? That at one moment, as soon as we are united, but as soon as some desire comes, we're back down here again. So then we again are limited in our views. So back to where we are at. Apparently we're at transcendental bliss. Transcendental bliss. So I asked my husband, it says here the transcendental bliss derived from devotional service. Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing, chanting. Did you experience this? Just for a moment, please reflect. When in your spiritual lives can you think of moments where you were in transcendental bliss? You see our Vedasara, who still has the dust of Vrindavan on him, huh? One sees like a glow. So it could have been from an experience like going to from one holy dham, because this is the holy dham of Simhachalam, to the holy dham of Vrindavan. It could have been it's easier for many of us in Kirtan that we felt this joy. In particular for myself, I remember Nityananda Trayodashi, when somehow the Kirtan broke out and there was a lot of dancing and everybody was really jumping and dancing and really singing the Lord's name. It could have been a quiet moment in chanting where one felt so connected to the Lord that one didn't want to stop chanting, for example. Or it could have been something when you were reading that you were like, wow, is this really true? Is this really true that this process will bring me back to Krishna, just like this? That one name of the Lord can bring me transcendental bliss? I just put some sort of, some moments where we think of where we have found transcendental bliss. Purajan Prabhu, so a disciple of Srila Prabhupada who had a lot of association with Srila Prabhupada, said sometimes in our spiritual lives we can believe that those moments of transcendental bliss are actually not real because they were just passing, they were moments. If we look back in moments where we felt like this, it's not often that it was 24 hours. It was some moment where we feel connected, and in another moment something maybe pushed us off course. Balaram, you look skeptic, huh? And no moments of transcendental bliss? Trying to find it, sickness, sort of like yeah. It's harder. In this moment, I thought, when one is sick, where does the transcendental bliss go? When you have somebody like Kadamba Kanana Maharaj, who left this word of mission, right, as his last word, mission, one understands that through illness, and it's hard to think of the Lord when one is really sick. It's hard to concentrate on the Lord, let alone at the final point of life. When my father passed, I was surprised. The last thing he did was pay obeisances to the altar. I mean, it was Radha Krishna and Prabhupada there, also Durga, but he paid obeisances, and then he left in this way, in a slightly dramatic way, or very. So in these moments which carry us through, one doesn't know what it is that is carrying us, Like, what is it in these moments? Back to Bhurajan Prabhu, he said these moments that we have, which are like transcendent blissful moments, are actually like jewels in our spiritual life that we should carry with us, as if within us we have a treasure chest. And these jewels and moments and experiences we should carry within ourselves. And at the end, these are the jewels that most likely bring us back home. Yeah? Do you understand? It's like a sweet, because sometimes we may think, okay, this mundane or this like, I did service the whole day, like this. Sometimes it can be that we did service the whole day. It was a beautiful festival. I remember there was one Nishinga Chaturdasi. It was the first around 10 years ago when many people started to come, like, I don't know, 600 or so many devotees. And it was a day where we were still few devotees. So the whole time we were on service and running and one emergency to the next emergency. And like, it could feel the kirtan, but there was no time to be in the kirtan. And I was just like, okay, whatever, great, running to the next thing and here and there. And then I think there was a moment, I'm not sure if it was Krishna Kshetra Swami, whether it was this kirtan or another kirtan, where I just went from here out there, and in between this walking, the Mahamantra was so powerful with all the devotees singing, and I was just like, whoa, oh, amazing. Okay, I'm here, connected to the Lord. I'm here trying to serve the devotees. I lost that meditation for a moment, but I could feel it again. I think I stopped enjoying the kirtan for some moments and then continued with what I had to do. But just in those moments of where one feels it, it is like a connection to the Supreme. Otherwise, why is it possible that Dhruva Maharaj speaks like this? That he says, the transcendental bliss derived from meditating upon your Lord is so unlimited that it is far beyond the stage of Brahmananda. Those who've done some sort of meditation, when you realize that there is a level of peace that can be achieved by this. And sometimes it has come about that with our chanting, I think these days devotees focus more on the chanting, but say around 20 years ago, I think there was something called japa reform, because it got into a phase where people were chanting, but the japa was just in the hand. And then you would have a conversation, Hari Bol, how's it going, blah, 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 Krishna, Krishna, da, 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 like this. And people would wonder, what do you mean, how can you say that this chanting is meditation? It's something that you hold in your hand, right? And it can also be that when we are being social, that we also lose our track in this. Small moments in this. Later on, Prabhupada speaks about comparing going to the planetary systems as like Jai and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki Jai. He speaks about the modern astronauts going to the moon. So it's like we steer up and then we head back down again. Sometimes Sankirtan devotees have told me that when they go out on the streets, they feel like they're plugged up with energy. They go there, and then coming back down can also be like coming, like, what's the word? Having a downer, like coming back, descending back down again, Is it like this sometimes? You sort of push with all your power down, and then you come back. They say sometimes that's why Sankirtan devotees are very restless in the temple, because they need something where they have to pump out the power and bring it about. So mostly Matajis are not so much into Sankirtan, but I saw this with Mariana. She was very restless until she was on Sankirtan. Then she looked completely happy on the streets. When I wanted to go home, she looked completely happy. So it's like a different version of what happens and what is going on. We can also sometimes feel in our spiritual life that we have ups and downs. So Balaram is struggling. So there was a nice article also in Back to Godhead about what happens in our spiritual lives when we become sick. Because before we are sick, are we measured by what we do, by our service, Vedasara distributed 100 books, Jay did this, and like this person did Balaram, yes, managed 50 European Union volunteers to come, Jay. Are we measured by this? And then someone is sick, and then they can't do any of that anymore. So what is it? What is the journey? Does this process of bhakti yoga not matter? Are we an external show? One of the Matajis last week spoke to me and I asked her how it was going. She said everything is fine, but it seems like the temple is very much service orientated. And I was like, yeah, Jay. And I was like, she didn't mean it so much in the positive. I said, what do you mean? Like, we have service to do. And in that, when we spoke, it seemed that somehow we missed the relationship part, of how we are as a community and as devotees. We sometimes miss this element that we're actually individual beings that may meet different things at different times. We once had a devotee here who told me that everyone can do everything. And I was like, it's not true. He said, no, it's true. We can all do everything that's there. I said, okay. And he was, if you know him, it's Godram. He's big like carpenter, DIY person. And he was just going to fix the windows. And I said from the office, okay, tomorrow I'll come with you on the roof. But guaranteed within half a minute I will have fallen flat down, from the roof, because that's my level of clumsiness, yeah? So he was like, okay, maybe you don't come up on the roof tomorrow. We all have a different parameter within our devotional service. It doesn't mean that our level of what we do is higher or lower than other people. It's just different. And as we evolve as a society, one accepts that we all have different skills to offer to the Lord and different ways. Like currently in the ashram, ladies' ashram, I don't have so many kirtaniyas. So we changed a lot of what we did in the ashram based more on japa. They're more the studying type, more focused on this level. When it goes in swings. When I first came to the temple, you're like, okay, Mataji, go clean. Doesn't really, or you can make flower garlands, whatever you choose. Yeah? So you have this, Prabhu, go out on the streets, go to the street. There's certain ways that are fit in. In Prabhupada's time, it was different. Apparently, he could assess someone's character and, be like, okay, you're artist, go and paint. Huh? here, this is your topic, go paint, go do this. It was a little different in that way, but we try. In modern day society, we call them career advisors. We sort of have spiritual advisors, trying to find what fits us in spiritual life and using that process in our ability. Our Rosemary hid her special ability of law for some time. Now, Darren, now it's known. I think. Sorry if it's not known. But she uses this now in the office to help devotees. I also had a question for her that she was able to give in a very precise way. There is nothing wrong to be able to use the skills that we were given in our spiritual lives. Suddenly when I came, I thought I would just make flower garlands for the rest of my life. And they said, but you're an office person. I was like, yes, I would just make flower garlands. Then a new temple president came and he immediately put me in the office. I was very unhappy the next week. But of course I was in the office until I found what it was, the service that I liked, Not just the service I liked, but the service that the Lord had given some ability in. It was both of these things, right? Sometimes the Lord, we have to do the mundane, or so to say mundane services. It could be like cleaning, because it's a show of our humility and how we can surrender to the Lord. And other times we are given the opportunity to unlock our true potential. If you have a potential for reading and for going deep into philosophy, then why not do that? If you are, for example, we have Kanai Krishna Prabhu, a wonderful Sanskrit scholar. If this is your propensity, it's amazing. When he speaks Sanskrit, one can understand that Sanskrit is the language of the spiritual world, because it's in such a way that one hears like, wow, this is how it must feel to speak to one another. It's like singing, but in a beautiful way. So there are skills for all of us. It could be, I heard, for Sankirtan devotees. Sometimes they say Sankirtan devotees forever, like Paramatma Krishna. And others, it may be that things evolve and different services come about. Also, like for Ramananda, he had different services he did. Nobody knows that he did quite a lot of Sankirtan in his time, but there's also different elements that we do. Yeah. How did I end up here? I ended up here because in day-to-day life it sometimes comes up like not this idea of transcendental bliss, but what's the opposite of transcendental bliss? It's sort of mundane unhappiness, can one say? And you're like, but how can you be in the temple and feel like that, How can it be that you've got to this point of feeling like miserable? And it's unfortunate, but I'm sure it's happened to most of us, and we've spoken to people who also don't feel so happy in that moment. And in that way, it causes question always to look into what is happening with us. I come more from the holistic background, so I would go along the lines of Mahatma Prabhu in self-care. So we look holistically with what it is. Sometimes Sachinanda Swami has also said sometimes devotees come and they're crying, and he just says, go and please sleep at least 5 hours. Just go and sleep, and then you can come back to me. And they come back, and sometimes it's solved like this. Devotees are notoriously we're known for not sleeping enough. It's like this. There's even a book on devotees and driving, because of this unfortunate thing that some devotees, having not slept enough, had accidents. We've had at least 2 Sankirtan devotees who've fallen asleep in the last years that I've been here while they were driving, just because of this lack of sleep, right? So it's this element that because of this basic things, it can ruin our day. If I continue, when I'm sick, to continue working, it may affect my general mood of being. Sometimes it can help. It's some in-between thing when one is sick. It could be also that we are in the temple and for a year our service is to clean. And there are very few devotees where even astrologically it said that they should clean. I hope Manju Krishna won't mind me saying, but apparently it's in her astrology, to clean. And people who have this, you can see they derive great pleasure in cleaning. But I think for 95% of us, we're like, oh, okay, let's get it done. Let's get this done. So in this way, I think of Radhanath Swami's example. I think when he was in the temple, he had to clean the pots in the kitchen. And he would clean them until they were smiling for Krishna. Is that the right thing? They would smile. Let me clean these pots and smile. That shows how the great devotees already have such a thought on the simple things in life. And in this way we can derive that from everything that we do. But I think it's not something out of our scope that we should be thinking, well, what gives us joy or bliss in our spiritual lives? And when there is a lack of it, then we should try to remember those points that have given us bliss and go back into it. Well, there was a different temple president at the time, and I was more or less secretary to him, and someone came and yelled at him, and I was like, and then, he went away and he came back after half an hour. And he looked very happy after. And I said, so what is it? What's your trick? What did you do? Because who likes to be yelled at? It was quite He said, well, my way is that I go in front of the Lord and perform kirtan to overcome whatever it is. He's like, anyway, I'm used to being yelled at. That's not a problem. But just to get rid of this sort of, it's like negative association for a time if you get yelled at. Then so he does kirtan. We all have to have sometimes strategies in life of what to do when it's not feeling good. If we don't, then we go back to the old ways. We go back to smoking or drinking, or modern day is let's surf the internet for 2 hours. The time goes. So what is our ways of bringing us back to the spiritual platform when we don't feel great? Like I say, the sleeping helps a lot, taking some nice prasadam. But other times when it could be something deeper, we may need to go into that philosophical thought or doubt that may be going. And under Krishna, they come later today or tomorrow. We're excited that the family comes back. By Vedasara's grace, if he brings them. Tonight. So he spoke often that there is no problem to have doubts in spiritual life. Because the idea of having a doubt means that we are questioning what is happening in life. We are questioning what's going on. I'm sorry that I see Rosemary and I see a court case. If there is a case presented in front of us and everything is by the book, it may be all right. But these doubts may lead to either more evidence, for example, in spiritual life, or it may lead for us to go a bit more internal. Because I'm sorry, I spoke about this essay or this article in Back to Godhead about being sick. The main emphasis of this article was that in times of sickness, the Lord gives us the opportunity to go more internal in our spiritual life. Bhakti yoga is not an external show. Niranjana Swami writes in his book Taking Care of Krishna's Devotees that somebody thought that if they just do service their whole life in the temple, they will go back to Godhead. And then they realized, but it's not guaranteed. Why is it not guaranteed? Yeah? It's not guaranteed, I think, in the way that when you go into service, but only physically you are in the service, without your heart, without your mind, that it is only partial service. When one is sick and one cannot really use the physical body, as you see, that's why I'm not scribbling on the blackboard today, yeah? It is a moment where we go a little bit more internal and think, well, what's happening here? What's bringing me to the point where I don't feel so great? What could I do to make me feel more connected to the Lord? What could it be? What is it in this shravanam, in this hearing? What is it in this kirtanam, in this chanting or singing for the Lord that could bring me more connected? What does it even mean to meditate upon the lotus feet of the Lord? These words and these thoughts that help us along the way. You're looking quite sweetly towards me. I wonder if there are any questions or points or observations. Did Shireen write anything, Brian, yet? Let's look our online, yeah? Not yet, huh? Come, Shireen. There must be something. Balaram Pran.
Hare Krishna. You talked at the beginning about the process of Shravanam, and then later on you went on talking about Seva and how each one of us can derive this bliss from his service. So I was wondering, what is, according to your experience, what is the connection between the process of Shravanam and Kirtanam, like our japa, and our service also? Like, how much do you feel more inspired to do service, your service, when you are having proper Shravanam and Kirtanam? Or maybe the other way around. How much do you feel inspired to hear or to chant when you are situated properly in your service?
The first point there is, what is service? For years when I've looked over the Mataji ashram, some of the girls, not now luckily, but before, they just don't like to read. I just don't like to read. So I was praying and I ended up with one Mataji who loved to read. She was really far in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, she loved to read. She just didn't like to do so much temple service. So I was asked by whoever the temple commander was at the time to go to speak to her. So I was like, you need to do service. She's like, I am doing service. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm reading, and I have a lot of questions. So it was just like, and I stopped. She's 19-year-old, Bhaktin, and I thought, okay, well, it is service to chant. It is service to read. And I had to go away for some time to think, okay, well, actually in our sadhana, which is our daily spiritual practice, the chanting is one of the most important. If you go in a day, especially if you're initiated, and you say to someone two things, I didn't go to Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam or I didn't chant my rounds, they're going to be more like, get your rounds chanted. Or they're not going to say to you, oh, nice that you attended Mangalati, forget about your rounds. Because the process that we follow is very specific. So in this vision of what is more important in terms of Shravanam or service, I realized that and a lot of us ladies are like this. I don't know of those who are from the working background, maybe Brum Simha is also like this. It's very easy in some sense for us to do service. We're already on modus go. Let's go for it. What do you need doing? Okay, I'll do it. I go for it, I'll do it. But this idea of Shravanam, to hear, like King Parikshit, to Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, to sit there for 7 days, let alone 7 minutes, yeah? What is this balance? The importance there, I think, is that there has to be a balance for most of us of what we do. Of the 9 processes, you have an example of each one. So it's like that's what they focused on. Yeah, so King Parikshit on hearing, Shukadev Goswami on reciting the Bhagavatam. That was their focus. But for most of us, we have to balance it all up. I know ladies who are just focused, Mataji's focused a lot on seva, and sometimes they left and they hadn't taken so much of spiritual life with them. Also Prabhus also, they were very keen on doing a lot of service, and then they left, and then you even heard they went off the trail. So carefully I say, because there has to be a balance up. In my process after around 20 plus years, the main focus that I would say that I focus in my life, as also as a mother, is this Shravanam Kirtanam. And by this I mean chanting and trying to hear the mantra. Because the chanting is what will also carry us through all moments in life if we get that connection. The service I try to feel a connection with, but personally, because you asked what it was, it is the Shravanam Kirtan that now comes into play. And that was after some years ago where I had a dip in my spiritual life, and I wondered why after 10 years of giving it all, at least externally, why was I feeling like I was in a desert in spiritual life? If we live our lives just maybe with the Shravana of Kirtanam and without rendering the service, I think we're also limited in this. Because with the service we're able also to have association with others. With the service we're also able to purify ourselves, because humans, other devotees, we don't always find the right connection. It's not like when we go to the Lord, he can even agree with us the whole time, right? It's like, so there's a lot to be said about both elements. So this, in my actual answer, I would say it's wonderful if we can live our lives where all around the clock we are somehow connected in some of the 9 processes. If when we are doing our service, then, I do a lot of things that are not so much like, can you open a temple shop or whatever. And when I open, I try to think, there is an opportunity yet for Sankirtan, for prasadam distribution, and for worshipping of deities. Like this. Then if I sit there and go, okay, how much money will I make today? Or how much, it's a different mentality. So it's the change. When I have to do things with the children, then we're like, okay, these are devotees of the Lord, let me try. Like last week, we made a sadhana chart for the children. They were on holidays. So we make a little chart and then I asked them, what can you do? What rounds can you chant? Mangalati is a star. If you go to Mangalati, and reading is also something, and something you choose. So it's a balance up, right? Sadhana, if somebody said, what do you want to do, Balaram Pran? You may say, I feel sick, let me just sleep today, just leave me alone. But okay, but I'm on this, I have to at least get my rounds done today. And then, more than that, when I chant, wouldn't it be nicer to let me try to hear the Lord? That's what I'm trying to do when I chant. I'm trying to connect with Him. I'm trying to connect with the Lord now. This would be nicer. Most would be like, okay, got them done. Phew. So this is the twist. And also another point of view, if you come in as a devotee child or something else happens, then there may not be so much connection with the chanting. It is like this for most. But Kirtanam is a way. And because we're given these 9 processes, and actually I think it is like this. There may be a process which will just bring it more out of us, like this whole. And if Kirtanam is your way of really being there, then you have to make an opportunity to be engaged in Kirtan. To bring it, to start programs, to preach, to sing if you're alone, to hear Kirtan, to give yourself those moments which make you feel like divine. If you are, for example, reading, you want to read, and you, for example, some people start with Srila Prabhupada's books, but they aim too high, and they're reading and they're not sure. When I was reading Bhagavad Gita, I was a little bit like, wow, so much information, what's it trying to say? I'm not sure. Until I started to do Bhakti Shastri, then I was a bit more like, okay, Yoga Ladder, okay, here's the path, and this is what it means, and high, and what, and so it's different ways that we have. When you read Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, there's certain ways of reading it, right? Like some teachers will make you read the whole translation of the chapter before you go through the purport, because you need to understand what's happening in the story beforehand. Same thing in our spiritual life. If we're just like, oh my Guru, somebody told me we should just do some service and get up in the morning and go for it, and not feeling it. We have to, what am I doing and why am I doing it? I redo Nectar of Devotion, because my favorite book, my God, and she said, in there it said that we should know the goal of life. And then I said, what do you mean the goal of life? To remember Krishna, not to forget Krishna? She's like, no. We have our individual goal and an aspiration of where we want to be in terms of bhakti yoga. We should meditate on this point, because otherwise, if it's vague, I'm following vaguely, it loses the line. If you know, for example, this is where I want to be, then the service and everything that you do will help you to reach that idea. You started from one point, I went to another, I'm sorry, but yeah. But this actual real connection between service and Shravanam Kirtan, I don't think there is so much of a difference. It is just that can also the next thing, but Gopi Gita just said there's no difference, so I'm going to stay in my room and chant and read the whole day. You know, why are you? The idea of rendering service to a temple, to understand that a temple is a preaching point and a place where so many more devotees can be born or reborn or whatever you want to say, is amazing. That service that we render to the Lord also improves our own journey back home. It's like, it is like this. But personally, if I don't balance it out, then I'm lost. I've had days, festival days, where you run around and then 8 o'clock in the evening, let's start chanting my 16 rounds. Wow, this whole... I still have, I was helping some ladies in the ashram, and they were both Kadamba Swami disciples. And I was a little bit shy to approach Kadamba Maharaja because, it's not directly my guru, but then I saw him in the stairwell in the guest house, and I was like, Maharaj, what do you say to people who are struggling with chanting? And he said, they should make a plan and get on with it, don't worry. And he was walking away, and I was like, what if it's your disciples? And then he took some steps back, sat down in the stairs in the guest house, and he said, first he said, who is it? He said, who is it? And I knew I'd be in trouble if I said. So I'm like, Maharaj, I can't tell you, I haven't asked permission, but what do I say to them? What do I say? And he explained again this thing about, I have to make a plan. And I looked at him skeptically, like, you're a guru. How can you tell me that chanting 16 rounds? He was like, no, seriously. He's like, I have a lot to do in my day, so I have to make a plan of when I chant my rounds. Like, okay. And then he said, before Mangalati, very good rounds. After Mangalati, good rounds. Then later, after breakfast, good rounds. And he got to evening, bad rounds. Midnight chanting, very bad rounds. It's just like, oh goodness. He said, but sometimes it's like this. We have to try our best with the situation that we're given. And he went back to, we have to make a plan, which is an interesting point, because some of us, if you want to follow in the, like being a sadhu, let's just be free with certain things. But actually in our spiritual lives, there has to be some sort of plan of how we will achieve what we do. And it can change accordingly. Before I had children, I could chant, at a certain point, normally when our japa time. After children, I always aimed to get the rounds done before lunchtime, so it was a plan of when one could do it. Prabhupada had the famous 4-4-4-4, different moments, so it shows that we have it. But it still means that we also have to see not just what we do, but the quality of what we're doing. When we talk about now chanting. When we are chanting and our mind is whizzing through, Vedasara might still be in the aeroplane, who knows, or whatever it might be. You may still be in the sickness mode. What can we do in that moment to shift whatever is presented in front of us and to focus on the Lord? And then when we are to do our service, what can we do to really see it as connected to the Lord. It can be that we have a wonderful service in front of us, but we maybe get a bit puffed up. Oh, great! See, finally, I have something that I can do. I heard it's also worse like this on the streets. So Sankirtan, if you're like, wow, I can distribute so many books, then Krishna takes it away, and you're not able to distribute so many. So it's like it's a very tricky balance sometimes, spiritual life. It's the Krishna consciousness, the conscious. Where is our conscious thoughts? Is it possible that you could be somewhere and do service just with a few devotees and think of the Lord all day? Yes. For me personally, it's much easier to be in a bigger association of people, to have the opportunity where one can learn from different devotees and see what works for others. Some people, one can learn just from their positive attitude, some from them endeavoring despite whatever problems, some from their youthfulness, whatever it may be, to try to see that as moments also for our transcendental journey. Yeah. No. Any other questions or thoughts? Prabhu, please. I know everyone here. What is your good name, please, before you begin?
Hare Krishna Mataji. My name is Giridhar Madhav Das.
Giridhar Madhav. Oh,
Giridhar Madhav Das. I came from Radha Raspbiari Temple, Juhu.
Wow, Hare Krishna.
It was a wonderful class. Actually, you touch upon a lot of things, and there was a lot of flashback which was coming when you spoke about transcendental bliss, and I was just contemplating where I was happy last time.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was thinking that, okay, like you mentioned, be in the moment. So, so I actually thought a lot of things where I was happy when I was actually dancing with the devotees, or maybe some. So thank you for that, for bringing that past memory and coming back. That's there. Say we spoke in detail about Shravanam, Kirtanam. Now my question is that sometimes we become very attached to service, and I purely believe that once you do service, Krishna automatically give you time for chanting also. If you're very sincere, the time automatically comes. But sometimes we become very attached, and that when that service is taken back from us and it is given to somebody else, where we still feel that we can do much better than what he's doing. How to get out of that mentality? So this is something which I want to ask.
Yes. Yeah, it happened to me actually. And in honesty, I think the false ego kicks in to begin with all. Especially this, I can do better, right? I can do better and this. Normally, I found in my own example that it was a test of humility. And also, what was I doing? Was I doing something because I thought I was the best? Or is the qualification for a service, the qualification for a service is best because your consciousness is the best for it, for example? And I say that carefully. I've known people who cannot cook so well, but they're given the service to cook, and others who can aren't able to maintain that. And when I thought of it a little more, it was sometimes the ones who really had this ability. It's not like this now where we're lucky to have both, ones who can cook and a good, internal. But some were very, something was a bit, not off, but a little bit like my cooking, mine. This is my service. This belongs to me and I can do it. This sort of mine. And this me, mine, this is everything that we're trying to get rid of, right, in this process of devotional service. I found in my example, that I pray to the Lord. I'm not sure if I am better or not. Now my false ego is telling me all sorts of things, whatever. But I would like to wish the person the best. And if I am to do this service again, because we have to be honest to the Lord. If there's an attachment, then you please make it possible. In my example, I got it back again, my service. But in that, there was a real process of understanding. Like, I have Kshatriya, like, it's not Kshatriya, so there's a little bit like, okay, let's get it done. Let's get, just get it done. So Brahminical is a bit more sort of, more transcendentally aligned. But in this mood, and that can be a more passion, mood of service. It can be like, okay, I'm good at that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. What is it? I. And actually, the vision of devotional service is, what do we render for the Lord that is actually just for Him? Yeah, everything that we do, what's just for Him and His process to really take that on board. So I think it's an internal way of being, right? This internal way of being, like this service. The service actually of what we do is, nice German word, egal. It doesn't matter, huh? It doesn't matter in one sense. What matters is what is happening internally. You could do the smallest service, and out of humility, you offer it truly to the Lord. And you could do the same service or a much higher service, but you sort of offer it to yourself. Like, aha, look what I can do. Did you see what I offered for the Lord? Did you see? Did you see it? I did that. It was like a subtle thing. And mostly we're not so much, but a little bit of that is mixed in. So somehow it's like this. When I first came in England, they were making flower outfits for Radha Londoneshwara. So I asked the teacher, who's always very enthusiastic, if I could make for the Lord. The first flower outfit I made was terrible. I mean, terrible. It looked like the Lord was flying. I don't know, like a whole... But the devotees were merciful, and I thought, if I'm meant to do it, then do it. Second year, nobody wanted to help, because it was on the Shinga Chaturdasi, so everybody wanted to break their fast or like this. So I was doing it really fast, and I had this hot glue gun. In every third or fifth flower, I was burning myself. And then I felt, every time I don't think of Nishingadev, I seem to burn myself. Yeah? So I had to be very focused. Just for you, Nishingadev, just for you, Nishingadev, just for you, Nishingadev. And when I slipped by out of tiredness, again I would burn myself. So it was a very funny meditation. It sounds a bit of a funny example, but I still remember it back then, of those years. Now it's different. Normally I have a whole group of Matajis who come and say, please, can I help you with this service? So sometimes it's just a matter. Sometimes Krishna also gives us a pause in that service. It could be through ill health or somebody, whatever it might be externally, just to also mature our thoughts on it. Another example I can give is 25 years ago, oh my God, is it that long ago? Maybe let's say 20 years ago, I started to be a book designer. And a graphic designer. And then I came to the temple and they were like, design this poster, do this. And I was just like, I felt like I don't want to design, but I did a lot of the posters from 10 years ago, the signs that you may see around, I did all this, many, but I wasn't feeling transcendental bliss. I was just feeling like, okay, I'm just doing what I'm told. And then I had a break from this. And I had a real desire to finally put this story of Simhachalam, which my Guru Maharaj Satchidananda Swami sort of said, if you have a book of Simhachalam, then put some sort of introduction. And, this was like a really strong desire to get this book finally in place. And then from this, at one moment, in this moment when I also think of bliss, it just felt right to design again. So maybe it was a break of 5, 6, 7 years. And since then I've done another 4 or 5 books in the space of 2 years. It just came up in that moment. So one doesn't know what it may be. Sometimes it might be that there is a break because we also have to go more deep into another area. Yeah, like I certainly had some issue with reading, for example, because when I came 20 years ago, they were like, they told me, to Mataji, you don't have to read as long as you come to Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam class and Bhagavad Gita class. I mean, like, that's unheard of now, So in this way, it may just be that we have to stop whatever we're doing, but but not give up on Krishna, not give up on our own spiritual path, just work more on it. At that time where you may have been doing a devotional service but other things went down a bit, it could be chanting or association or all of this, it may give a little bit of time for this, and then at the right time the service may come up again. Interestingly enough, I had the same, really, and when I was given the service back, I came back with a lot more life to it, to an inspiration. Are you a Radhanath Swami disciple? Are you Radhanath Swami disciple? Gopal Krishna was here. So Juhu, I was like, very nice, Hare Krishna. Sundarsham is also? Yeah. Nice. We are very happy that you are able to join us in Simhachalam. Are you staying long or just a short visit? I'll be leaving today after. Or then you must come again and stay longer. That's what happened to all of us. Huh? Then we here and don't leave. Thank you. And this is the point. Usually in my classes I would have gone through everybody and tried to draw out all of their transcendental bliss moments. But actually due to sickness I am a little lacking in energy today. But I please ask that in the day think of these moments of transcendental bliss. The word is samskara, or deep impressions. I get samsara and samskara, yeah? So these the deep impressions which formulate in our lives. This helps us. We've seen these bad movies. At the end, someone's about to die, and they have flashbacks of these moments. This is what we should try to fill our lives, but of spiritual impressions. That at this moment, that we are then brought back to Krishna. This is much better than focusing on all the things that didn't go right. Most of these things that don't go right, they're sort of actually immaterial afterwards. But those moments where we felt connected, they will carry us through. They will. And times of deep struggle can also be moments of connecting with Krishna. It's not that they are, This moment is like, okay, I don't know Krishna, I don't know what's best for me. Maybe give me a sign, give me a clue. I don't know what it is. I also found in my moments, and this is the final point, that this idea of deep prayer, vandanam, helped me a lot when internally and externally things were not going as they should be. This idea of approaching the Lord and with the prayer trying to surrender helps many. And Nrsingadev, before you go, you try him. Many people like Kadamakanam Raja, Sachinanda Swami have said that the Lord is extra special here. Kadamakanam Raj sat here and said, the Lord here, Nrsingadev, he's not just here in the temple room. He's not just in the forest, but he's like pervading, far out here. He's very potent. Nrsingadev in this form, because he has his blessing hand, right? Is after everything is over, all the drama is over. This blessing hand is waiting to give the blessings. We pray, and most often you will soon see how the Lord reciprocates. Why to pray? We're devotees, we shouldn't pray for anything. Huh? We have needs. If this is stopping our consciousness being on Krishna, then better to open up and let it out than for it to stop us. Yeah. And on service and not having the service we need has been a reason that many devotees can leave, because they feel that they are not fulfilled. It's like in the outside world what one will say a job or what they needed to do. So it's this moment of going. If we said to Vedasara, you can't go on Sankirtan now, full stop. Be like, whoa, you take away my life, or? No, Krishna, we don't say this. Huh? But so it's like this. One can feel like, but when there's other services, it may not be clear to others what is really bringing us to that moment. But the Lord knows, the Lord sees. Is that okay? I hope so. Different options. Huh? So in summary, you could pray, internal reflection, meditate, like this. Huh? Many different things. Transcendental bliss ki jai. Hare Krishna. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.